In winter did not come alone. Slowly gathering its harvest, death arrived in the village lost among the forests and fields alongside the snow. It came unnoticed. No one realized when it happened. Only in the morning did they whisper of why the dogs in every yard had howled in unison during the night, and why all the fresh milk had soared. Then they moved on to more pressing matters, and the old folks complained of aching bones. A bad sign, and the sparrows had all hidden away, definitely a frost coming. The poultry was all puffed up, a snowstorm was on its way. They chattered a bit and then dispersed. Village folk had much to do, and winter days were short. The storm broke out swiftly. In less than an hour, the sky was choked with leaden clouds to the horizon. A biting, icy wind brought the first snowflakes, and the frost drove even the most restless children indoors. People closed their shutters and stoked their stoves, as if by instinct, without even realizing it, and they stayed close to the fire and avoided stepping outside unnecessarily. They were no strangers to foul weather, harsh winters, or the impenetrable darkness of night. But this night was different. Tonight, death held its ball, and the people could feel it. Mitch opened up. Ivan, his face wrapped in a scarf, knocked on the door again. "You've kept me out here in the cold for 10 minutes. How long can you sleep?" But the blacksmith Mitrofan did not open, nor could he, even if he had wanted to. At that very moment, he lay on the kitchen floor in front of the cold stove, glassy-eyed, clutching an old rifle. A little farther away, his wife Natalia lay with her neck twisted unnaturally. She was embracing their 17-year-old daughter Masha as if trying to protect her. Pale as death, with a long, ragged wound on her neck. 6-month-old Anton lay in his carved cradle. He too was dead. How long does it take, even in bad weather, to stir up a tiny village of 40 houses? Less than half an hour. Soon, all the able-bodied villagers had gathered in the old chapel, leaving only the very elderly behind. A low murmur of voices rose to the rafters along with the steam of their breath. The stove had yet to warm up. The people were tense. And why wouldn't they be? 4 people dead at once, and not by natural causes. The details of their deaths were whispered from one corner to another, each retelling more horrifying than the last. Oh, God. Masha was such a beauty. What is happening in this world? How can the earth bear such monsters? To impale a baby on a poker and nail it to the wall like a scarecrow. Voices echoed by the iconostasis. The door swung open. Everyone fell silent and stared at the newcomers with mute questions. Ivan, who had discovered the bodies, held a rifle in one hand and supported the heavily drunk village medic Max with the other. Accompanying them was Boris, a former district investigator recently dismissed from the police force. The tension in the air thickened palpably. The medic scanned the room with bleary eyes, pulled out a cigarette, and lit it in silence. "Well, Max, don't keep us waiting." Questions rained down from all sides. Max took a slow drag, then reluctantly spoke. "Murdered. And cruelly. Natalia's neck was twisted. Masha's throat was torn open. They didn't even spare little Anton. Nits." His words were cut short by a cough. The villagers exchanged horrified glances. Only one question was written on their faces. "Who?" Boris growled hoarsely. "Go home, bolt your doors, don't let anyone in, and don't set foot outside after dark." The people obeyed. Boris commanded genuine respect. Within minutes, only he, Ivan, and Max remained in the chapel. "You two shouldn't linger either. We need to bury the children before nightfall." "Boris, wait." Max suddenly looked cold sober, as if Ivan hadn't needed to support him earlier. "I didn't tell you everything." "I noticed." Boris smirked. 35 years in the police wasn't for nothing. And Vania here seems to have caught on too. "The blood. What's wrong with the blood?" Boris explained already. Max lit another cigarette. "There isn't any, no blood in their bodies. Not even in Anton." The night was long for Ivan, tossing and turning as he processed what he had learned. Long for Max, whom even homemade vodka couldn't numb that night. Long for Boris, who had never encountered anything like this in his years on the force. Long for nearly every villager. And eternal for Andriy, whom the whole village had once betrothed to the now deceased Masha. Eternal, too, for Andriy's parents, who slept fitfully but did not hear their son cry out in the next room. "Masha, I knew you were alive. You'll freeze." "Wait a minute." Eternal as well for Andriy's paralyzed grandmother, who heard everything but could do nothing. Only weep silently as she listened to her grandson stomp to the front door, slide back the bolt, and creak open the unoiled hinges before a voice called out, "Come on, hurry inside." The night was long. The blizzard did not relent the next day, and everyone who could hold a tool silently hacked at the frozen earth with pickaxes. Before dark, they needed to dig 6 graves, working under the lashing wind. They didn't notice how the fresh snowdrifts over 2 of yesterday's graves had sunk. As if something beneath the frozen earth and snow was missing, it was no longer possible to hide that the victims had been drained of blood. The villagers moved like shadows, flinching at every sound. And among the elders, a word began to spread in hoarse whispers. "Vertilak." Max would laugh bitterly each time he heard it and walk away without a word. Boris spoke not a single word that day, and Ivan, after nailing crosses to his door and hanging garlic all over his house, locked himself in the barn and furiously carved something. Dusk swallowed the village with unexpected speed. The exhausted men worked even harder. One grave remained. They finished in darkness, without a word, and they huddled together and hurried back to the village as fast as the night and snow choked road aloud. In the dark, through the swirling snow, pale figures seemed to dance around them. 3 men ventured off the path to investigate but returned empty-handed. When they saw the welcoming lights of the village windows, they quickened their pace, relieved to be home, never noticing that of the 22 who had left, only 19 returned. By morning, 3 houses stood empty. The 2 Babalika sisters were gone. A solitary shepherd, who had buried his wife and daughter the year before, had vanished. His absence noticed only because someone saw his door hanging open. And a house where a family of 5 had lived was now deserted. No people, no bodies. Meanwhile, the wives of the missing men interrogated those who had been at the cemetery the day before. But no one knew or had seen anything. And so, another night passed. Aglaia woke suddenly, as if shoved. After lying still with her eyes closed, realizing sleep wouldn't return, she lit a lamp. Dark thoughts plagued her. Her husband had been one of the 3 who hadn't returned from the graveyard. Rationally, she knew he would never embrace her again, never kiss their daughter goodnight. She knew it in her mind, but not in her heart. What was that sound? Like glass scraping. Aglaia approached the window. She couldn't see. She had to extinguish the lamp. Clicking it off, she peered into the darkness. Oh God, Misha. Misha, you're back, my love. Her husband stood outside. Something told her don't open the door. But what was reason compared to the joy pounding in her heart at the sight of her husband, alive and well? Throwing on a robe, she rushed to the door, muttering nonsense in her excitement, and slid back the bolt. Come in, where have you been? Mikhail hesitated for a second before stepping over the threshold. God, you're so pale, what happened? His deathly, pale face showed no emotion, like a wax mask. But his eyes were alive, glistening in the lamplight. They gazed at her with an unclean longing and hunger. Cold. So cold out there. Of course it's cold. What are you saying? Horrified, Aglaia stepped back. She understood. That night, the missing men reunited with their families. They sat in silence. Max drank glass after glass without a chaser, chain smoking. Ivan nervously fingered a rosary with a crucifix. Boris stared out the window without blinking. Of the village's 43 houses, 25 had already gone dark. Nuff. Boris was the first to break the silence. I'm going to the next village for help. You won't make it. Max lit another cigarette. You'll die. I've been on skis since I was 5. I'll make it. I have to. Instead of arguing, Max poured them all a round of moonshine. Then let's drink to your journey. Ivan said nothing, only clenched his rosary tighter. When Boris's figure vanished into the white haze on his skis, Max and Ivan went their separate ways. Ivan had a wife and child waiting. Max, with a look of grim resolve, shook his head at an invitation to join them. Returning home, Max cursed as he rummaged for something. Finding it, he gave a bitter smirk and, whistling a simple tune, began assembling something. With nightfall, death reigned in the village. Missing relatives, neighbors, and friends knocked on doors, begging to be let in. Those who yielded, whether out of pity or unbearable terror, condemned themselves and their families to death. Those who refused found the Vertalax far less polite. Appearing as if from nowhere, monstrous wolves smashed doors and windows to splinters, burst inside, and dragged screaming victims into the streets, where the dead continued their bloody reverie. Ivan, before a wolf tore out his throat, spared his wife and child a worse fate with a bullet to each of their heads. Garlic and steaks had not saved him. Max, hearing scratching at his window, didn't even rise from his chair. Come in already. It's open, he called, lighting his last cigarette. When the creatures entered, he grinned crookedly, took a knife, and cut a rope tied to the armrest. A bucket of kerosene, suspended from the ceiling, drenched the ghostly guests. Taking a few quick drags, Max flicked the cigarette. Flames engulfed the dead, then the hallway, then the kitchen. Soon, the whole house was ablaze. The wind eagerly carried smoke across the village, igniting house after house despite the blizzard. Soon, not a single home remained untouched by fire. The bloody snow reflected the inferno, a victory for the demons. Dawn was still far away.